Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I'm going to be playing some Norse gods of vehicles, hull-down Swedish monsters. I've got a double helping of gameplay. Firstly, we're going to be checking out the Tier 8 Emil, and then we're going to be following it up with the Emil II. Now, these tanks, the heavy Swedish auto-loading Ridgeline gods, went into the game at the end of 2016, and for me that was such a wonderful period of World of Tanks. This, along with the Swedish tank destroyers, I felt like really added in a whole new playstyle for you to be able to enjoy. These tanks had 12 degrees of gun depression, they had turrets that you could only really go through from the side. You couldn't go through them frontally unless you got hit by high explosive rounds or some kind of artillery was deciding to shoot you from above. And they also had autoloaders. The Emil I has 105mm autoloader with 320 damage, 270mm of standard pen, and premium pen of 242. And although it does have a long intra-clip reload of 3 seconds, so it's going to take you 9 seconds to to unload the entire magazine, and then you've got a long reload time of 34 seconds as well. If you just get into this scenario where you can be controlled, you can just really absolutely dominate vehicles, irrelevant of them being the same tier, 1 tier higher or 2 tiers higher. And I absolutely fell in love with this tank when I played it, and for some reason it's still statistically one of my most impressive tanks, at least with regards to average experience and damage. Because if you can just get yourself in on a ridgeline like this, and I know this is a very favourable scenario for the vehicle, this is probably the best ridgeline in the game on Westfield, and when there's no artillery on the enemy team you can be absolutely monstrous here. But I guess the stats don't lie, and I'm averaging about 1,300, pushing nearly 1,400 experience in this tank, which is way above even my better vehicles like the Comet, which is packing out about 1,200. And I just think that's because you can just unload without the risk of taking damage. And to have those 12 degrees of gun depression, it allows you unprecedented flexibility on a ridgeline. And a lot of vehicles like this E100 and T110E4, they're not even going to be bothered to shoot at you, because if they do, they're going to most likely bounce off your turret, and also you have to expose such a smaller part of your tank. One thing I love about these vehicles as well is I'm going to call the tank forehead. The distance between the gun and the top of the tank is very, very small, because that means they've got a tiny, tiny part of your vehicle to hit if you poke your gun over the ridge. Alright, so far, not bad at all, but we are firing a lot of premium rounds in this game, but the thing is the premium rounds on this tank just allow you to actually go through the side of an E100, for example, and while I didn't really need them against the Scorpion at the start of the game, and I definitely don't need them against the AMX 5120, they're definitely going to help if the E75 turns towards me, or alternatively, for just making moves on this oh-ho, and wham, bam, in the first 3 minutes of this game, 4,000 damage, a lot of that dealt to tanks of 1 or 2 tier higher. But it's not over yet for the Emil. Even though we've absolutely dominated that ridgeline, the enemies have taken the southeast of this map, and we get to use the relatively good top speed limit of this tank to be able to venture forth to see if we can get some more shots in. Now, if you're worried about this vehicle thinking, oh my word, this thing looks crazy OP, what the hell is this tank? Well, let me give you a little bit of advice when you're engaging Emils, and that is that they have 20mm of side armor. And what that means is that if you have a 61mm caliber gun, of which pretty much all tanks that meet the Emil are going to have, just shoot it anywhere in the side. Even when it's angled like this, it's not going to ricochet. You're going to overmatch the side armor. And if you shoot here, not only are you going to overmatch the side armor, you're also going to take the tracks off as well. And so if you can find the hull of the Emil, you are going to just lock it in place and be able to damage it at the same time. So definitely use that to your advantage. Now, you can't do that against the Tier 9 Emil. You can't do that against the Emil II. You can only do that against the Tier 8 Emil. So definitely take that into account. And that Spaghetto tries to work that ridgeline against me. I'm just thinking, like, what are you doing, buddy? Alright, so this is a fairly dangerous situation for us. There's lots of high-tier autoloaders, including the T54E1. But I feel like it's time to pressure the situation here. Now, I'm going to try and advance against this T54E1, and I've got him right in the side. We put one into the back of the tank, and he can't elevate right now. Oh dear, buddy. We're going to put 3 rounds in there, 1 into the top of the engine deck. I was kind of hoping for a fire there, but it wasn't to be. But now I've also got to worry about the people below me. And you can see I'm looking left, right, center. We've got about 4 or 5 tanks just focused all around us. And with the 53 TP falling, I'm thinking, shall I ram the T54E1 here? No. I'm probably not going to do very good in a ramming scenario because this tank weighs less than 30 tons. But I was actually counting the shells of the T54E1. And look, even though he's behind me, I know he's reloading, so I can just completely ignore the guy, go over into his dip, and then work the tanks that were trying to flank me behind. And oh yeah, this is where this tank just feels real good. But oh no, a disaster! Our shell actually misses the Spaghetto, and so we're going to be able to put one into him, but now I don't get to kill him. I'm going to ram him a little bit, see if I can maybe bounce the shell off the turret, and somebody fires a high explosive round, but finishes him off. But oh no, a T-54E1, I guess, gets a little bit of justice from behind and finishes me off. Nevertheless, 6,000 damage in 5.5 minutes and +2 matchmaking. Yeah, I think that'll do. And apart from that one miss against the Progetto 46, this would have been a flawless victory. So the previous round was actually played during Sunday's Tech Tree Showcase. And as you'll know, I work my way up the tech tree so you can see how it develops. Now we're going to be checking out the game in its bigger brother, the Emil II. And while it appears to be fairly similar to the Emil 1, it does differ in some quite substantial ways. Firstly, it uses a 120mm main armament, and now you're starting to pack some serious penetration on this tank. Your alpha damage has gone up from 320 up to 400, and while your unload speed is significantly worse now at 3.33 seconds rather than 3 seconds, kind of makes up to have that 400 alpha damage, and so your unload potential is now 1,600, although it will take you 10 seconds to unload the entire magazine instead of unloading it in 9 seconds like you can on the previous vehicle. Now, what is better about the Emil II? Well, everything. The DPM, the penetration, the magazine potential, the alpha damage, the fact that it's now got heat rounds if you choose to use them that have 300mm of penetration, and you don't need to fire premium rounds as often because the standard penetration is 252, which is very decent for a tier 9 heavy. Also, the turret armor on this tank has now gone up to 215 of angled frontal Swedish god armor on this turret. And really, you're going to need premium rounds from tier 10 tank destroyers to even be able to begin to contest the Emil II's frontal armor. Also, the side armor on this tank is also vastly improved. It's now 60mm, which means that you can no longer be overmatched by pretty much everything. The only thing that's going to be overmatching the side armor of the Emil II is going to be the FV215B183, or alternatively its counterpart, the FV4005. And so this means that you can kind of over-angle the Emil, and hopefully somebody's going to try and shoot into your tracks, and maybe you're going to pull off a miracle bounce. And also the upper hull does feel a lot better as well, but you do have this big old beak on the lower plate that you have to try and hide. But when you get into a scenario like this, you don't even need to be using your gun depression to hide your beak, and you just feel like an absolute boss. Now, it's always a bit awkward in these scenarios. Should you reload? Should you not reload? Well, obviously the 263 is going to drive out in front of me. I'm not going to reload, and we're instead going to, not quite finish him off as that sneaky Skoda, which has a much better unload speed of 1.8 seconds intra-clip reload, manages to snag the kill. Nevertheless, slow and steady wins the race, right? The Emil, the Stridsvagn 103B, all kinds of vehicles which are very good on the defense. Vehicles that can punish you from a defensive location, and then, once they've got the upper hand, can proceed to advance towards you as well. It's what I just absolutely loved about that period of World of Tanks at the end of 2016. We didn't have overpowered premiums left, right, center. We didn't have the garbage template system that we have now. It wasn't just clones of WZ-111-5As, Object 277s. The 113 getting buffed, the IS-7 being buffed so it's pretty much identical to all of the other vehicles. It was kind of more novel tanks, you know? Every vehicle wasn't really a Soviet heavy tank driving around. You had a bunch of different tanks of different characteristics, and I felt that you could really have more opportunity to take advantage of the weaknesses of the enemy team when not everything was really just this low-profile Soviet medium or heavy driving around. A sign of the times, really, I guess. Whether this is going to change in the upcoming year, I don't think that's going to be the case, but maybe food for thought, really, and it's something that I'll definitely be hopefully mentioning in some kind of feedback, because, wow, yeah, I have to admit, this month we've been fairly critical about the game, but hopefully constructively so. And I'm really hoping that maybe we can get something from it in the new year when everything calms down and all the holidays finish. Because let's be honest, I did release kind of my feedback at a very interesting time where most people, developers and business would pretty much be done, right? So maybe in January we're going to be able to have a good old talk about it. Anyway, T55A recently buffed, caught out in the open, aiming, but we finally get there, and we're going to put one into the T55A, but we're not going to fire a second because I don't want to get caught out in the open by these heavy tanks. So instead, I'm going to advance towards them, And yeah, this game, it's still pretty close. We're ahead by 4 tanks, but there's still a lot of hit points left on the enemy. Now I've got 3 rounds left. That's 1,200 potential damage, and I'm hoping that I can use it to finish off this 111.5. Oh, it's not the 5.8, it's a 111.14, sorry. Alright, so now you're going to see me do something pretty funky in this tank. Look, I'm going to wedge my vehicle up on the left here. And oh yeah, peekaboo! I see you, buddy. And then it kind of like forces him round in the corner. He fluffs the shot against my friend there. And that allows us to finish him off. Now the E75 unfortunately gets cooked. I'm going to hopefully try and squeeze out in front of him to try and finish a shot into the T10. Right up into the lower plate, also taking off the track. I'm getting pushed from behind, but I can't really push forwards right now, Mr. 263. Sorry about that. I don't want to drive out in front of the 705A. If you want to do that, bud, you're more than welcome to. And it looks like me and this E75 are just going like, okay, yeah, what now, bud? What now? Well, the E75 plows one into the 705A. And this 263 really wants to get into position. So I just decide to push forwards anyway. I mean, I might as well take a shot for the team because this game is starting to be a victory. But oh dear, after an artillery shell, a 705A shell, and now the T55A firing heat rounds into me, I don't quite feel so confident. Nevertheless, once you don't have to take things like gun rammers on a tank, you can take things like coated optics, vents, and vertical stabilizers, because that means that we've got very decent view range, and there you go, heat rounds bouncing off the Emil turret. That is what is beautiful about this tank. Alright, WT Alpha Panzer IV caught out in the open, but not for long as our shell whizzes in, secures our 4th kill of the game, and 5,500 damage and 1,400 spotting, and all that is left is to find out where the piggy wig is. Only shot me once, so I'll let you off. I'll let you off on good behavior. Well, maybe not. And the very next game, another cracking result, this time in the bigger brother, the Emil II. So our first round was actually our second mark of excellence in the Emil, but to be honest, I haven't really played this thing since I first ground through it a couple of years ago. A Confederate and a high caliber for the 6,300 damage dealt, 1,766 base experience points. That was a decent game, and we still made a profit with or without a premium account, although do take into account that there's some kind of holiday bonus going on right now. And his bigger brother also slammed an ace, a high caliber, and a tank sniper medal for 1,440 in both quick games. But when you do get on a ridgeline on this tank, you do feel like a Swedish god. And this time it didn't look like we needed to fire any premium at all, and so a meaty profit there. And so the Emil and the Emil II, 2 forgotten tanks, but it doesn't look like a lot of people actually bothered to play. However, with Wargaming planning on rebalancing the Kranvang as a priority in 2019, maybe it's time to dust them off and prepare for a possible return to meta. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was it for today. Really hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, give it a thumbs up, but if you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And let me know in the comments down below what you think about the Emil II, and the Kranvang. Do you think that their playstyle is fun? Do you think it's novel? Do you think that it's good for the game? Do you think it's bad for the game? Do you feel that the vehicles are underpowered, overpowered, or are they just about right? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.